Hey trumpet nerds, welcome back to John Talks Trumpet. This week, 3 rest counting hacks for the easily distracted trumpet player. When you're playing in an orchestra or a band, rests are as important as notes. Every single rest should be counted because your job can depend on it. Today I'm going to share with you 3 rest counting hacks that helped me get through really sticky situations in ensembles. The first rest counting tip that I have for you is counting to 100 on 2 hands. A lot of people, they count to 5 and then 10 all on one hand. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Or, even better, I guess, is to use 2 hands for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. However, that only gives you 10. Even if you use your toes, you only get 20. In orchestra, a lot of times you'll have rests that are really super long, sometimes over 100 measures, but a lot of times between 50 and 100 measures. I've helped develop this method to count to 100 on 2 hands. So the first thing is you take your right hand and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With me so far? 6. Looks kind of like a 6, or at least I feel like it does. 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So basically you're using your left hand as the tens digit and your right hand as the 1 digit. So we've got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, let's do some to practice. So if I look down at my hands and I see 4 and 5, we got 45. If I look down and I've got 9 and 7, 97. Another thing about this method is that it can be kind of distracting visually to other people if you're counting really obviously with 2 hands, so I like to keep my hands in my lap nice and subtle. It'll take a little bit of practice to recognize each of the hand symbols as you go, but I promise this is still much better than using one hand and being like, wait, is this 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30? This method can be really useful, especially if you practice it every time you have a rest to count, because sometimes your mind will still drift anyway, and you'll be so practiced at counting to those high numbers on your 2 hands that you can actually kind of drift, and then you'll look down and be like, oh, I guess I'm at 75 now. Ideally, you should count the whole time, but it's inevitable that you're going to lose concentration eventually. That brings us to hack number 2, which is dissecting your rests. This basically means if you see a longer rest, even up to 40 measures or even 20, often during the rehearsal process, I'll take my pencil and I'll pay attention to the music as it goes by and try to write in basically where the music naturally breaks up in terms of phrase. Okay, so let's say for example, you have a 40 bar rest. You might, depending on the music, be able to break it up into 16, 16, and 8 bar rests. And then at the beginning of each section, you can write a little cue for which instrument or what kind of melody is the prominent voice. Sometimes I'll write just an instrument, like I said, like bassoon or bass or horn, but other times I'll write just a sound effect that I'm hearing at that particular spot, like maybe the word sweep or boom, or even just a cue that makes me think of it, like loud. With this particular hack, I find it useful to actually study the music quite a bit beforehand. While I'm just listening to get familiar with the music, I'll actually mark out the phrases as I hear them. So again, with our 40 bar rest, you hear the winds and the strings, they do their thing for 16 bars, and then you draw a little line. I tend to do it directly underneath the rest measures in the music, just for simplicity. And you want it to be legible not only so that you understand it, but so that also that the next person who uses the music will understand it and won't find it hard to read. The coolest thing about writing in your cues on your subdivided measure counts is that if you do accidentally check out, then once you look down and you see what the cue is in the music and then you finally hear it, you'll be back on track. Of course, it is hard to count rests by yourself, so that leads us to hack number 3. Hack number 3, and in my opinion the most important, is to team up with your friends while counting. It's a lot to ask to focus for 100 measures of rest at a time, and so it's best if you can have your friends help you keep track of where you are. The way you do this is by having everyone in the section give a little finger tap as soon as they reach the rehearsal marker. I just do it right there on my knee so that the person next to me can see it, but nobody from the audience is going to notice. That way, you can sort of see out of your peripheral vision that other people are in the same exact spot you are. Sometimes you'll actually find out that you're out of calibration, like you'll give a tap and then the person next to you gives a tap a bar later, in which case you need to huddle for a second to figure out which one is right. This can be a lifesaver in an actual performance because sometimes if things get off, it can actually derail an entire concert or an entire piece or an entire movement. In an orchestra situation, 2 or 3 brains is always better than 1. Again, I think rests are sort of an overlooked aspect of orchestra music because the playing is so engaging and challenging already. but the rest counting is definitely as important as the note playing in terms of the whole ensemble, and I stress it's really important to get good at this. Nobody cares how good your solo sounds if you play it at the wrong time. And you can nail something in rehearsals repeatedly, but then miscount in the concert, and all that work will have been for nothing. Thank you so much for joining me for today's John Talks Trumpet episode. If you enjoyed this content, please give this video a like, and if you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe so that you know as soon as a new video comes out. New videos every Tuesday.